All right, so chickens, huh? Everyone's heard the old chicken or the egg head scratcher, right?
Classic.
But today, we're not just scratching the
Oh,
surface.
sir.
We're going full-on deep dive into the world of Gallus domesticus.
That's right. We're getting granular.
And trust me, folks, these birds are way more interesting than most people give them credit for.
Oh, absolutely. You know, we're talking billions of birds here.
Billions.
Literally, more chickens on Earth than there are people.
No way. Okay, gotta give us the numbers. How many chickens are we talking exactly?
A mind-blowing 26.5 billion.
26.5 billion.
And that's just the ones alive right now. It's pretty wild when you think about it, these descendants of the red jungle fowl outnumbering us humans.
Okay, that's a lot of chickens.
Yeah.
26.5 billion strutting around, pecking at things. I'm already intrigued, but hold on, before we go any further, why are there so many names for these feathered friends?
Aha.
I mean, we've got Biddy, Capon, Chook, then there's the classic rooster. It's like they have a different name for every feather on their,
It's a regular chicken lexicon. And speaking of names, did you know rooster is actually a relatively recent addition? It didn't really show up until the 18th century.
Seriously, so what did people call them before rooster caught on?
Cock, plain and simple.
Ah, okay.
But it seems folks started using rooster as a way to, well, avoid any potentially awkward interpretations. Language is funny that way.
Yeah, euphemisms. Gotta love them. All right, so rooster's the OG euphemism. But let's get down to basics. What makes a chicken, physically speaking, besides the whole clucking and the occasional crowing, of course?
Well, picture this. A rounded body, short wings, and for most breeds, those legs aren't winning any beauty contests.
I mean, they're not exactly known for their long, graceful gams.
Not quite, but here's where it gets interesting. Those domesticated chickens we see pecking around, they're descended from birds that could really fly.
Wait, really? Hold on, so you're telling me those plump little chickens in everyone's backyard, they come from a long line of high-flying ancestors?
Absolutely. The red jungle fowl, their ancestors, those guys were practically avian acrobats. But over countless generations of domestication, they've, well, traded in those flight muscles for a bit more, shall we say, plumpness.
Makes sense. You don't need strong wings when your food comes in a bucket.
Exactly. And speaking of appearances, we've got to talk about the difference between the guys and the gals. Roosters, the males, they like to strut their stuff with those bright red combs on their heads and the wattles under their beaks.
Yeah, wattles. What's the deal with those anyway? Are they just there for decoration?
It's all about attraction, my friend. Those flashy features, it's the rooster's way of saying, hey, ladies, check out this plumage.
So it's like the bird version of peacocking.
Oh, get it?
Exactly. And just to add to the fashion show, some chicken breeds even have this genetic mutation that gives them extra fluffy feathers right under their beaks.
So they're rocking little chicken beards. That's adorable.
They really do. It's like they're sporting tiny feather boas. Okay, now those are some chickens I could get behind. Stylish and delicious, the best of both worlds. But on a more practical note, what fuels all that backyard strutting? What do these feathered fashionistas actually eat?
Well, chickens are the ultimate opportunists when it comes to food. True omnivores.
Omnivores meaning they'll eat pretty much anything, right?
You got it. We're talking insects, seeds, grains, even the occasional small lizard or snake if they're feeling adventurous.
Hold up. Did you say snakes? Okay, maybe not the backyard buddies I was picturing.
Don't worry. They're not exactly reptilian assassins, but if a small snake happens to wander into their territory, well, it might become a high-protein snack.
Well, I guess that's nature's version of waste not, want not. So they're not picky eaters, that's for sure. Does that diverse diet play into how long they live?
You bet. A healthy chicken, they can live for a good 5 to 10 years. There have even been cases of chickens living to 16.
16 years? For a chicken, that's like ancient in chicken years.
It just goes to show there's more to these birds than meets the eye. And speaking of which, let's talk about their social lives. Because chickens are social creatures, but it's not all sunshine and roses in the coop.
Yeah, I bet those pecking orders are serious business.
You could say that.
So it's like a real-life game of, well, chicken. And the stakes are high. Who gets the best food? The prime nesting spots. It's all on the line.
That's a pretty good way to put it. It might seem straightforward, but that pecking order actually reflects these broader patterns of social hierarchy we see all over the animal kingdom.
That's wild. It's like there's the tiny little microcosm of the bigger social dynamics we see everywhere.
Speaking of dynamics, we always hear about chickens clucking. But are there other sounds they use to communicate? Do they have like a whole chicken language we're missing out on?
Absolutely. They've got a whole repertoire of clucks, chirps, and calls That classic clucking you mentioned, that's mostly for when a hen has laid an egg or when she's calling her chicks.
Makes sense? Like a little chicken lullaby. Exactly. And then, of course, there's the rooster signature crow. That's a powerful declaration of territory, if I ever heard one.
Oh yeah, you know rooster means business when he lets loose with that crow.
You don't want to mess with a rooster who's staking his claim.
So we've got clucking for the everyday stuff, crowing for the turf wars. What else?
They even have different warning calls for different types of predators. Like if a hawk is circling overhead, they'll sound one alarm.
And a different one if, say, a fox is sniffing around the hen house.
You got it.
Yeah.
It's like they have their own complex system of air raid sirens and ground troop alerts.
That's incredible. They're like tiny feathered security systems with a different alarm call for every threat.
So we've got social structures, communication. What about love? What's the story with chicken romance? Because I gotta say, I'm picturing some pretty awkward first dates.
Well, it all starts with the rooster putting on a show. And I'm not talking a simple chirp and a feather ruffle here.
Oh, it's more involved than that. We're talking a full-on mating dance, complete with circling the hen, gracefully lowering a wing. They even do a little fancy footwork that could rival a waltz.
Okay, now that's adorable. So he puts his best feathered foot forward. But what if the hen isn't feeling it? Is she stuck with whatever rooster struts his stuff the best?
Not at all. Hens can be picky. If she's not interested, she'll just walk away. No drama involved.
You go, girl. All right, so we've got our dapper dancing roosters and our independent hens. But I have to admit, I'm a little fuzzy on the biology here. How does it, actually work?
Yes, the birds and the bees, chicken edition.
Exactly. Lay it on us.
Well, it might surprise you to learn that chickens don't mate in the traditional sense.
Oh, so how does it work?
Instead, they transfer sperm through this brief touch events, often called the cloacal kiss.
The cloacal kiss. Okay, now that's a term I haven't heard before.
It's not exactly Hollywood romance, but it gets the job done in the chicken world.
And that's where we'll leave it for now, folks.
Stay tuned for part 2, where we'll delve into the mysteries of the cloacal kiss and beyond.
Welcome back to the deep dive, everyone. Last time, things got a little interesting.
We did leave off on the cloacal kiss, didn't we?
We did. So for those who missed part 1 or who just need a little refresher, give us the lowdown. What exactly is this mysterious cloacal kiss, and what happens after our rooster and hen have their moment?
Well, it's all about efficiency in the chicken world. You see, both hens and roosters have a cloaca.
Cloaca.
It's a single opening that handles, well, multiple bodily functions. And during the kiss, they press their cloacas together, and the rooster transfers sperm to the hen.
Okay, so it's a quick transaction, no muss, no fuss. So what happens next? The hen just starts laying fertilized eggs right away.
Not immediately. The hen actually stores the rooster's sperm, kind of like saving it for later.
She's got a little storage system going on. That's pretty wild.
Nature is full of surprises. And thanks to that storage system, a hen can lay fertilized eggs for days, even weeks, after a single encounter.
Wow. Talk about making the most of it. So she's got these fertilized eggs. Now we're getting into incubation territory, right? What's the timeline here?
You got it. Think of it like a countdown clock. About 21 days, give or take. And during that time, the hen is on supermom duty.
Protecting those precious eggs.
Exactly. She'll sit on them, keeping them warm and safe. We call that brooding. And she's very dedicated to the job.
I can imagine. But I've got to ask, what's actually happening inside those eggs during those 21 days? How does a tiny chick go from, well, yolk to fluff ball?
It's a pretty incredible process. That little chick is growing inside the egg, and it has its own little yolk sac that provides all the nutrients it needs. And here's the really amazing part. When it's time to hatch, the chick has this special tool called an egg tooth to help it break free.
An egg tooth?
Yeah.
Seriously, is that like a tiny beak accessory? What does it even look like?
Imagine a tiny sharp point right on the tip of the chick's beak.
A little beak buster.
You could say that. It's temporary, of course, but they use it to chip away at the shell from the inside until they can finally break free.
That's amazing. Talk about coming into the world prepared. But once they're out, does the mother hen just send them off on their own? It's a tough world out there for a baby bird.
Not a chance. Mother hen is still in charge at this stage. She'll keep brooding her chicks, keeping them warm, teaching them how to find food, even how to take a proper dust bath.
So it's like chicken kindergarten.
Exactly.
So we've covered the chicken life cycle, but I want to circle back to something we touched on in part 1, their origins. We know chickens were domesticated in Southeast Asia, but they're everywhere now. How did they become so widespread? Who was responsible for spreading these feathered friends all over the globe?
Well, their journey is a real adventure story. Think Polynesian seafarers, Phoenician traders. Chickens were along for the ride, hitching a lift across the planet.
So chickens were practically the original backpackers.
You could say that. And there are even some theories that chickens might have been in the Americas before Columbus.
Really? I thought that was, like, historical fact. Columbus brought chickens to the New World.
That's the common narrative. But some evidence hints at an earlier introduction, potentially from those Polynesian seafarers. There are ancient artifacts, even some genetic studies that suggest a pre-Columbian presence.
Wow, that's a real head-scratcher.
Yeah.
So chicken history is more of an open book than we thought.
Exactly. But whether they arrived earlier or later, there's no denying their impact.
And that's especially true when it comes to food.
Absolutely. Chickens have become a primary source of protein for humans. We've got chicken on the grill, chicken nuggets, eggs. The list goes on.
And that brings up some important questions about modern farming practices. Because there's a big difference between a backyard coop and, well, factory farming.
Right. It's a complex issue with a lot of different viewpoints. On one hand, factory farming has made chicken more affordable and accessible to people. But on the other hand, there are concerns about animal welfare, the environmental impact. It's a conversation that's still unfolding.
Absolutely. And it's important to be aware of those different perspectives. We're not here to take sides, but to give our listeners the information they need to form their own opinions.
Exactly.
But hey, it's not all about dinner plates and ethical dilemmas, right? Chickens have a history that goes way beyond the dinner table. In fact, didn't they used to be involved in divination?
They did. In ancient times, roosters were practically feathered oracles. People used their crowing patterns to try to predict the future.
No way. Seriously. What was that called and who was doing it?
It was called electriomancy, and it was practiced by the ancient Greeks, the Romans. They believed those roosters had a direct line to the gods.
That's amazing. So we've got roosters predicting the future, ending up on dinner plates. What else? Weren't chickens also big in the art world?
Oh, absolutely. Chickens have been featured in art for centuries, symbolizing everything from fertility and prosperity to the cycle of life and death.
Wow. It's incredible to think how much symbolism is attached to these birds. We've gone from barnyard basics to ancient history to high art.
And we're not done yet.
And we're back one last time for our chicken deep dive extravaganza.
That's right. We're crossing the road, so to speak, getting to the really fun stuff.
We've covered a lot of ground. Biology, history, dinner plates. But now it's time to explore how chickens went from the coop to, well, pop culture icons.
You'd be surprised. They're everywhere. From ancient symbols to modern mascots, chickens have really infiltrated our collective imagination.
It's true. I mean, who hasn't heard a rooster crow and thought, all right, time to seize the day?
It's practically a call to action. And don't even get me started on cock-a-doodle-doo. That's a certified earworm.
Seriously. It's like the international anthem of childhood. But it goes way beyond nursery rhymes, right? Those rooster calls have been inspiring artists for centuries.
Absolutely. Roosters have been showing up in paintings, sculptures, you name it, often as symbols of the sun, vigilance, even masculinity.
Wow, I never realized how much symbolism was packed into those colorful combs and wattles. But it's not just fine art, is it? I feel like I've seen chickens pop up in everything from children's books to blockbuster movies.
You're not wrong. Remember Chicken Run? That movie was a masterpiece. And it wasn't just for kids. It had those deeper themes of freedom, resilience, the whole shebang.
It's amazing what you learn when you start digging. We started with a simple question about chickens and eggs, and now we're seeing how these birds are woven into the fabric of human culture.
It makes you think. If a rooster from, say, ancient Rome could see how chickens are portrayed today, would it even recognize itself?
That's a wild thought. Talk about a culture shock. I guess it just goes to show you how our perception of something as common as a chicken can change over time.
Exactly. And maybe that's the biggest takeaway from all of this. Chickens aren't just, well, chickens. They reflect our own values, our fears, even our sense of humor.
Well said. So, to everyone listening, the next time you see a chicken, whether it's on your plate, running around a farm, or even starring in a movie, take a second to appreciate the deeper story.
Because behind that feathery exterior lies a rich tapestry of history, symbolism, and cultural connections that continues to grow and change even today.
It just goes to show there's always something new to discover, even in the most everyday things. So keep asking those questions and see where they lead you. Thanks for joining us for this deep dive, everyone. Until next time.